Years ago, when I was running a research project in Washington, a memorandum came down from on high, telling us that there was money available to hire minority professionals for the summer, without having to take it out of the regular project budget. "Wonderful," I said. "There's a Jewish lady up at Princeton who wants to come down here and help me out, but I don't have any money to pay her." This idea was shot down immediately. Jews are not a minority, I was told, and Jews from Princeton are definitely not a minority. It did no good to point out that Jews are only 3% of the population, and so must be a minority. Nor did it do any good to say that Jews were defined as an ethnic minority in the research project itself. The powers that be turned a deaf ear to all such arguments. In a sense, they were right. The word minority had already become one of the many politically corrupted words. It no longer meant a statistically smaller part of the population. It meant people you feel sorry for. After all their achievements, nobody felt sorry for Jews anymore. Therefore, they were not a minority. Nobody feels sorry for Asian Americans anymore, after so many success stories. Therefore, they are increasingly excluded from minority status in programs and policies at some colleges and universities. A few years ago, a memorandum from the U.S. Air Force Academy gave lower cutoff scores for minority applicants being recruited, but Asian Americans had to meet the same standards as whites. Few institutions are so impolitic as to put such policies in writing, or so unfortunate as to have them leak out. But there is growing evidence that this practice extends well beyond the Air Force Academy. When Berkeley used verbal test score cutoffs to eliminate applicants in 1984 and 1986, minority students were exempted, but Asian American students were not. Many Asians were wiped out by the verbal cutoff scores because their strong suit tends to be math. At Harvard, the test scores of Asian American applicants were virtually the same as those of white applicants, but the Asian Americans actually admitted had test scores substantially higher than those of whites who were admitted. In terms of test scores, Asians had to be better to get in. It is not just Asians and Jews who lose their minority status because of outstanding performance. Some financial aid programs have also passed over those blacks who score above a certain level, in favor of those blacks who did poorly, who really need help. They want people they can feel sorry for. Academic smoothies are never at a loss to explain away whatever they do. At MIT, for example, the director of admissions has responded to criticisms of large test score disparities among people admitted from different racial and sex backgrounds by downgrading the importance of test scores. Differences in test scores have only a modest correlation with later academic performance, he said. This familiar argument is clever but phony. The average MIT student scores in the top 1% in math. Just where in that top 1% probably doesn't matter a lot, as the director of admissions says, but it does matter that he is in the top 1%. By the same token, the difference of a few $1 million between one Rockefeller and another probably doesn't matter that much, but that doesn't mean that it makes no difference how much money you have. It makes a very real difference that 90% of the white MIT students score higher in math than the average black MIT student. A substantially higher percentage of the black students fail to finish MIT, and those who do graduate have substantially lower grade point averages. The tragedy is that this waste, more than 1/4 of the black students don't graduate at MIT, is completely unnecessary. The average black student at MIT is well above the national average on math tests. He is just not in the stratospheric level of other MIT students. At most colleges, universities, or technical institutes, these same black students would be on the dean's list. In short, black students with every prospect of success are artificially turned into failures by being mismatched with their college. This is not peculiar to MIT. It is a nationwide phenomenon among elite schools, who are more interested in having a good-looking body count from every group than they are in the price that has to be paid. Everyone pays a very high price for this academic fad. Disadvantaged minority students pay the highest price of all. Asians may be lucky that they are not considered a minority.